the flow.
Okay, that's good. That's really great.
Yeah. Okay. I think we will start because we already have 15 people here. So people will keep, I think, joining. So no problem. So let me start first with an introduction to Mirjana, and then she can go through the slides, and then we come back to the questions and answers. So on behalf of the EAU Early Career junior members, so we're organizing a series of conferences or of conferences. So today we would be honored to host Professor Mirjana Povic, who's a researcher from Serbian Spanish researcher. And she's working, as you see in her slide, in three affiliations. She's a researcher at the Institute of Astrophysics of Andalusia, and also associate professor at Ethiopian Space Science and the Geospatial Institute. And she's a honorary professor at Marlborough University in Uganda. So she earned her PhD in 2010 at the IC and studies galaxy formation and evolution, the AGN, star formation, and morphology of the galaxies and clusters and so on. For last 20 years, she really contributed to advance the astronomy across Africa through research, education, and capacity building. So she also served as a IAU Division C Vice President and leads and coordinates multiple African initiatives, especially the African Network of Women in Astronomy in Africa, and she has received many awards in that. So welcome, Mirjana, and you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Youssef, to you and all the IAU working group of early career astronomers. As I mentioned when I joined here, I really appreciate the invitation and all the work that this IAU group is doing, because I think it's really one of the fundamental working groups under the International Astronomical Union. So the talk, as you can see, will be regarding the diversity and inclusion in science. So how we can really make the science to be more diverse, more inclusive in the future. I think there is a lot of improvements that has been done over the past years. But there is also still a lot to be done. So I will focus on examples from Africa. Youssef asked me a bit, these are the points that I will touch, and that was a bit under the request of Youssef to also share a bit my personal journey. Then I will just very briefly highlight about the importance of science being more diverse and inclusive. As I said, through the examples from Africa, I will introduce a bit more AFNOA, the African Network of Women in Astronomy. And finally, I will go through the summary of challenges, opportunities, and also recommendations that we come up to through the work under AFNOA and through the work under the African Strategy for Fundamental and Applied Physics that I will also mention during the talk. Okay, so I will just, Youssef mentioned a little bit, I will just mention what my research is about. So together with my colleagues, with my students as well, we are focusing on understanding galaxy formation and evolution through these from the multi-dimensional perspective. So in particular, we study morphology and how the structure of galaxies is, the nuclear activity in galaxies and all the properties of AGN, how the star formation in galaxy would be quenched, and in particular if there is any role of AGN in quenching or enhancing star formation in galaxies, and then how all of this depend on the environment. So basically, what are the properties of galaxies in galaxy clusters? And we are also interested to understand how all of these properties of galaxies are changing with cosmic time. So this was something that starting from my PhD that was focused on nuclear activity, I've been involved with. And actually in the first year of my PhD, by doing the research in astronomy, this was the question that was really fundamental for me. So how actually, as professional astronomers, we can benefit our society, and how through the research that we are doing, studying, trying to understand how the universe as a whole works, how we can really implement now that knowledge and understanding of the universe to other aspects of our society, and contribute that the world in the future becomes a better place for all. And when I say to become a better place for all, I really mean in a certain way combating the poverty that we have in the world, all these huge differences that we have between the global south, global north, and how we can really and how we can use the astronomy. When I started with this question 20 years ago, there has been a huge change, I think, in our field related with this question. At that time, I was at the Institute of Astrophysics of Canary Islands. That was a big institute, and there was almost no talk about and conversation about astronomy for development, astronomy for the society, and so on. And in the first year of my PhD, I actually started, that was when, at the same time, when I started my PhD in the first year, I did my first volunteer work in Kenya, Tanzania, and then after that in Rwanda. And that volunteer work was focused on education, working with kids in several orphanages, with street kids as well, that some of them you can see here. Everything was focused on working, promoting the fundamental sciences, and then also putting a bit the astronomy. And that very first volunteer work was really fundamental because I went back to Canary Islands to continue my PhD, and I was actually about to leave my PhD because I was not really clear. I didn't have a clear picture how through astronomy we can actually what will be the answer on this question? No? How through astronomy we can benefit our society? Now, 20 years after, I don't have any doubt, we know very well that through astronomy we can really, really improve our society and also make the science to be more inclusive and diverse. So basically the last 20 years was really a bit the journey between two of my passions. One is the exploration of the universe, and the other is really the social activism in a certain way through astronomy, and work with the communities through astronomy. So basically, for the past 20 years, these are a bit all different aspects, all different areas that I worked on in collaboration with so many colleagues across Africa that are really, really doing an amazing work under very hard conditions very often. So I will a bit mention about the outreach education activities in schools, a few initiatives that are there that we started with my colleagues for empowering girls through STEM and through astronomy, teachers trainings through the NASA network that I will also mention a little bit. There is a lot of work that has been done on the human capacity development. That includes giving postgraduate courses, supervising master PhD students in astronomy in different African countries, organizing trainings, giving different trainings across, at the universities. Also research collaborations that I'm really happy to have been involved in during these last 20 years with many African countries. And I think we managed to improve not only collaborations, international collaborations between Africa and the rest of the world, but also intra-African collaborations that I think are very, very important. With work, I'm happy that I managed to contribute to the institutional development, in particular in Ethiopia, through the last 10 years of work at the initial Ethiopian Space Science and Technology Institute and current Space Science and Geospatial Institute, the infrastructure development, and then also I was a bit involved in the development of policy strategies, in particular in Ethiopia, on several Ethiopian space strategies, the African strategy for fundamental and applied physics that I will mention, and then continental initiatives like the establishment and the first 5 years of AFAS and then AFNOA as well. So now, using this a bit, I will actually focus on the talk, and I would first like to mention. I will not be speaking about the importance of diversity and inclusion in science, because we can really dedicate a lot of time on that. Nowadays, I think with so much research that has been done, there is no doubt that diversity and inclusion in science are really fundamental for the full benefit of and the I mean the for the benefit of research and for getting the best possible research using all the capacities that we have. But I think also what I put here, it's actually our responsibility, I think, to make the science more diverse and inclusive, because of what is written here, that actually in order to combat poverty in the short and longer term, we do need education, we do need to empower the whole population, including minorities, women. We do need science for that, so that we can contribute to the science development in the low-income countries, that we can contribute through these previous to the technological development and innovation in low-income countries, and then through all of this also to the industrial development, so that we can, as I said, really through more diversity and inclusion in science, also in the longer term, combat the poverty and make the countries to be much more equal in terms of the social, economical development, environmental development as well. So we know nowadays that astronomy really can contribute to all sustainable development goals, to some of them significantly in the shorter term, like those that I marked here with the solid line, to the others in the longer term. Very often we forget that Africa also has, and the African Union also have their own agenda, 2063 agenda, and again, astronomy can also contribute to all the sustainable development goals of the African Union agenda. Including all the work now of the African Space Agency, that it's a new agency that we have on the continent. And now, saying all of this, I will go a bit through the roadmap. So I will basically, through the examples from my personal experience, initiatives that I have been involved with, as I said, many other colleagues, I will I will give a bit like a roadmap. What are all the activities that we can do through astronomy? We can go through using astronomy to actually make the science more inclusive and diverse, and then use that as really something to impact the global social economical development in the longer term. So the first thing is related really with the power of astronomy to really empower the youth, to empower the children, to empower the kids in primary schools, secondary schools, even at younger ages. And in particular, when we are talking about underrepresented communities. So the first, let's say, message or advice for all participants would be really to keep in mind constantly to share your knowledge. To share your knowledge with those in particular that have less possibilities, less opportunities because of the conditions in which the children and youth are living. So here you can see some of the examples of the activities carried out, in this case in particular in Ethiopia and in Uganda. But every time that we go to the schools, every time we go especially to remote rural areas, you will get, and you come with a small telescope, you will get the queue of students where every time they look through it, you will see their eyes changing and the smile on their face. If you go to, as I said, remote rural areas, like in this case here, that we traveled for 4 hours on using pista, and then reaching above 3,000 meters in the villages, one of the schools having children that have been so impressed with astronomy, with science, listening about astronomy for the very first time, and and where, when we ask later on how many of them are planning to maybe go to science, we had so many hands there that before the visit they were not aware of the exploration of the space. Or here that we went to the west north part of Uganda, on the border with Congo, South Sudan, with my colleagues, in order to interact with 60, 70 girls. And then suddenly we found more than 1,000 girls below 3 giant mango trees that came there from several villages to hear about astronomy. So the interest is really amazing, and every time that we share our knowledge, it's not excluded that we can actually in the future, because of that, have new scientists and somebody that will go to astronomy, space science, or any field related with space. Also, another advice is to always think about how with our work we can contribute to the development of local facilities. These local facilities can be either small professional observatories, and that with our work we think about contributing to the technological development, like the case here that we have with Entoto Observatory in Ethiopia, or it can be focused on thinking about making the small planetarium, bringing the small planetarium in your countries, in your areas, getting the small telescope that then you can use to go to the schools, universities, and so on. So with Entoto Observatory, that is about 10 kilometers away from Addis, in average, before the war started, we had around 10,000 visitors per year. For Ethiopia, this is really a lot because it's not easy to travel, it's not easy to visit the areas out of the city. And really having the facility like this makes a huge significant difference in inspiring, motivating young people, and in empowering them, but also inspiring them to do science. Another very important aspect that as professional astronomers we can definitely contribute to is to support everything related with local initiatives in science, schools, science associations like amateur astronomical societies, and then civic societies. One example is the impact that Ethiopian Space Science Society, that is a civic association in Ethiopia that now has been running for 20 years, and the huge difference that ESSS made in Ethiopia, promoting astronomy, promoting science through astronomy, through space. Now the ESSS has more than 100 branches across the country, at different universities, in schools, many activities focused on inspiring talented students and searching for talented students. And actually through the activities that are there, that are plenty, outreach activities, talks, summer camps, small research projects, and so on and so on, that through all of that, it's also searching for and inspiring talented students. And as one of the results of this kind of work, we can also see that, for example, this year, Ethiopia was one of the 2 countries that managed to send students, some of these talented students that we trained, to the International Olympiad in Astronomy and Astrophysics that is organized under the IAU. So awareness, here is another advice for all of you, and especially young researchers, that awareness is crucial. So again, with your work in astronomy, even professional astronomy, you can really play a significant role in bringing awareness worldwide. How do you bring that awareness worldwide? Through all the activities that you are doing, but that can include also giving more visibility to particular programs where we can bring African countries to participate in all of that. And one of those is definitely the International Olympiad in Astronomy and Astrophysics, where we can show how much potential is actually there in African countries. So we hope that in future this year, Ethiopia, Algeria were the only two African countries, the first two African countries that collaborated in IOAA, and we hope that in starting from the next year we will have stronger participation from Africa. Astronomy can really be used for empowering minorities, and that includes girls as well through astronomy. And I will give the example of two initiatives. One is the STEM for Girls in Ethiopia that we started with my colleagues from Society of Ethiopian Women in Science and Technology in 2019, going to the secondary schools, interacting with the girls in the smaller groups, bringing women that are professionals in some of the STEM fields to present their field of work, but also in their science, but also to share their personal and life story. And there we really saw that it was really a eye-opening experience. We understood really a lot how all the different aspects, first difficulties that the girls are facing, very often lacking the support from the community, society, their families, teachers to go to STEM fields, but then also the lack of information, the lack of role models plays a significant role. When you go to remote rural areas, everything becomes much more difficult. So from this experience, we came to the SciGirls project. The SciGirls project in Ethiopia has been running now since 2022 under the support of the SSGI, the Space Science and Geospatial Institute in Ethiopia, but also under the support of the OED, the Office of Astronomy for Development. So it is one of the multi-year projects that has been supported. So with the SciGirls, we are focused on empowering girls, training the girls and female teachers that are working, living in remote rural areas of Ethiopia. Many of them are coming from the areas that have been affected by conflicts and wars in the last few years. And this year we will do the third edition of the SciGirls. It's the training that is organized in the capital, in Addis Ababa, but all the girls and teachers come from the remote rural areas. It's really a strong capacity building training where we mix the theoretical part, the practical part, small research projects, visit to different institutions, the dot observatory as well. Then giving the trainings in collaboration with the Ministry of Innovation and Technology, giving the trainings in STEM, where we bring people from the ministry that will speak about the importance of STEM, job opportunities in STEM, and so on. And the main idea is to actually, after the training, have more advocates in STEM, that now advocates are actually girls, and that when these girls and their female teachers go back to their communities in remote rural areas of Ethiopia, they can now transfer the knowledge and speak about the importance of STEM and the opportunities in STEM to all, promote that to all boys, girls in their communities. So it's really a training and a program that is having a lot of impact, and we really have to see how to secure the funding for the future. Also, I would like to mention that as astronomers, wherever that we work, we shall never forget about the colleagues and students that are going through the difficult times and that are exposed to crises that are working, living in conflict-affected areas or in areas affected by other type of crises like natural crises, human-provoked crises, and so on. And in that regard, astronomy can again play really an important role. I will not have much time to speak about it, but we can definitely reflect on that during the questions and the discussion session. Another aspect, definitely fundamental aspect to make the science more diverse and inclusive is to train the trainers. So, and in that regard, again, as professional astronomers, we can really play an important role. So again, my suggestion to and call to all of you is really to think about how through your knowledge you can actually transfer that knowledge to those who are trainers. That can be working with teachers in primary, secondary schools. There are several initiatives that you could join. One of them is this one, NASE, the Network for Astronomy School Education, that has been running since 2009, but it's not the only initiative. Nucleo is there, for example, that previously was Galileo teachers trainings that also made a huge impact, and then several other initiatives. Unawe that is there, the Pale Blue Dot initiative that is a bit continuation of Nawe. And then through the IAU and the Division C, there are several commissions that are also doing a lot of work with teachers that you could join, including the key initiatives that we have as one of the working interdivision working groups. So myself personally, I participate in NASA. As I said, it's the initiative that has been running since 2009. It has been started by Rosa Maria Ros, Beatriz Garcia, that you can see here from Spain, and then Beatriz Garcia from Argentina. NASA by now gave more than 400 trainings across the globe. I participated in particular in trainings mainly in eastern part of Africa, and in NASE, most of the training is actually practical training. So basically, we use the recycle materials and then materials that we can find in our households to construct different experiments and to show different laws in physics and astrophysics. So basically, the main purpose of NASA is to bring astronomy, to bring science to the schools, and to show the methodology where even if you don't have funding, you can still use plenty of materials that we have around to do the experiments with students with even, as I said, zero funding. And it has been giving really, really positive results. It's quite inspiring training with a lot of material that has been developed that you can find on a NASA website, and you can always get in touch with us. And all the material is free. There are books, there are presentations, there are videos for every single experiment, and there are tens of experiments that are there in different topics related with astronomy. Besides training teaching the teachers and training the teachers primary, secondary schools, it's also important that we can transfer our knowledge for improving the higher education. And that means very often training the next generation of researchers, so participating in master and PhD programs, giving the classes, supervising the students, and in that way ensuring the inclusive and quality education for all and promoting, let's say, the lifelong learning through the trainings and the supervision of postgraduate students. So here are some of the examples. You can see some of our very, very first students in Ethiopia. I will give as an example Ethiopia. When I joined 10 years ago to the Space Science and Geospatial Institute, at that time it was Ethiopian Space Science and Technology Institute, I was only one of the 3 professional astronomers that we had in Ethiopia at that time. Now there are more than 60 professional astronomers with their either master or PhD degree. All of them work at different universities across the country, public universities, or at our institute. So there really has been a significant change when we now come to the astronomy and space science in general. So that also helps with preventing brain drain, as I said, and also it helps that in the future, well, now we have Ethiopia as one of the African countries and world countries that do contribute thanks to all the postgraduate program that started, as I said, 10 years ago, that now Ethiopia contributes to the global research in astronomy, global development of science, and then everything else related with what I mentioned previously. Here you can see when we come now to the research in extragalactic astronomy and research group that we have in collaboration with not only Ethiopia but other African countries as well, that you can see here marked on the map. Some of the the master PhD students that together with my colleagues we supervised. So in the last, since 2016, 14 master students, 4 PhD students graduated. Currently, there are 2 master, 5 PhD students that are ongoing. 50% are female students. That is something that is really, really important. So we really try to keep the balance as much as possible, and that we can improve the gender gap in science that is still quite significant across the continent and then worldwide. I have to say that all of the students that you have, that you can see here, that went through their master and PhD, they continue in astronomy. So almost all of students who finished master, like those 14 master students that you can see that graduated, they managed to get their the competitive scholarships to continue their PhD. And then those that already finished, like Tseleke, Antoine, Dejene, their PhD, they now work Shimeles, that is here, they now work in the field at different institutions, and actually all of them in Africa. So so these people are really fundamental. They are the future of the continent. They are the future of making the fundamental for making the science more inclusive, more diverse, and making the world a better place. And through them, actually, we can go through all these improvements, all different contribution to sustainable development goals that I will not go into details, but that includes future human capacity building, improvement of education, because they will continue training hundreds of other students, bringing more research on the continent and in the world, with all different ethnic diversity and all other sorts of diversities that we can really make the science more diverse, and then contributing in more diverse international collaborations, inspiring next generations of scientists coming from Africa, coming from underrepresented communities, because many of them came from challenging conditions and underrepresented represented communities as well. So it's really, really a significant change. Another advice that I would like to give, that is again fundamental, now I'm going more to the professional astronomy and the research that we are doing. So through the research that we are doing, we can, beside exploring the universe, really contribute to make the science more diverse and inclusive by thinking continuously with whom do we want to collaborate. Every time that we ask for funding, who will be making the working team, who will participate in the funding, different funding modalities and so on, so that we can really come up with the collaborations that are really benefiting the globe and benefiting in particular low-income countries. I will here mention one new initiative that it's one of the large programs that is starting at SALT. This is the large program that has been accepted at 11-meter SALT telescope in South Africa last year. And it's the large program that will be carried out. It is called Pan-Afro-Asian SI Survey from Pan-African AGN, the Active Galactic Nuclei Survey, using SALT integral field spectroscopy. So it's basically using one of the new instruments at SALT, that is the very first instrument for the IFU studies of in optical. And with this, we have all the science objectives that are that are there for improving our understanding of the AGN physics. But also, this project has been designed in collaboration with my colleague Antoine, and then now we have more than 80 members. And this is really one of the great examples. Now you can see Antoine here, who was our first student in Rwanda to do his master in astronomy, then his PhD in astronomy, then now he's a South astronomer in South Africa, training now new students like Delphine that you can see here, that is now our PhD student in Rwanda, and now he's one of the experts that is for the first time developing the pipeline of this new IFU instrument that is totally homemade instrument in South Africa. So you can really see the impact, you know. And this survey has been developed on one side for all the science objectives, but for the other side also to give more visibility to the astronomy in Africa, to the AGN study that we have. So we have 14 African countries participating with around 80 members. The overlap with people that are using MIRCAT, SKA, so that in AGN studies, and then also in collaboration with the US and 5 European countries that already have strong, and colleagues that already have strong collaborations with Africa. So this is just one example. Now there are many other examples across the continent, especially under the SKA, in radio astronomy, but also other projects. So if you are doing your research in astronomy and you have to apply for funding, or you have to invite, people that to come to your institute, or you are thinking about new project, new paper, and so on, think about people coming from different parts of the world, and then in particular from low-income countries, so that we can really improve the status of science, astronomy, and in terms of the diversity in the future. This is the current scenario. So 10-15 years ago, when I finished my PhD, I wanted to, more than 15 years ago, I had clear that I want to work in Africa, and at that time, 15 years ago, the only place where I was able to get a job position as a professional astronomer was South Africa. So I applied. I went to the UKZN, the University of KwaZulu-Natal in Durban. And now, for the last 10 years, I've been working in Ethiopia, also collaborating with Uganda, many other institutions and countries. And here you can see the current status in astronomy across the continent. In terms of the infrastructure development, so the observatories that are either there or under the development, you can see all the countries that are participating that do have some professional astronomy development in terms of other aspects, institutional development, postgraduate programs, the site testing for future telescopes, policies, and so on. And then even more than 70 amateur astronomical societies that are now there across continents. So all of this shows that there has been a huge development in astronomy over the past 15-20 years, in South Africa much longer, of course, and that is really through the hard work of so many people that have been there. First, starting from 20-30 years ago, starting with very small number of people, many of them working in South Africa. South Africa played a huge role in bringing astronomy to the rest of the continent through different programs like NASP, then OID when it was developed and started, and then many other initiatives. Then nowadays, of course, DARA, SKA, AFAS, and so on. But this network is now really increasing, and I think let's say the pace that we have, and all the potential that is now there, especially with all the young people that are now there, that every year we get more and more master graduates, PhD graduates, and all these young people have such a huge potential to actually transform the continent and then the globe in the future. Here you can see because through all of this impact and the change, we can also see what is the contribution of Africa now in research and the number of peer-reviewed papers that we have. This is the plot that we got recently using this source here. These are only peer-reviewed papers. You can see a bit where we are across the continent. So in black, you can see all published papers. In Africa, peer-reviewed papers in astronomy in Africa, and then the contribution of 6 countries that have the highest number of peer-reviewed papers in astronomy. So South Africa, of course, contributes the most to this curve, and then other 5 countries are Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, Nigeria, and Ethiopia. And you can see that actually in the last 10-15 years, the number of publications tripled, which is really an amazing progress. But even so, we still have a lot to do to cope with the rest of the world. I think South Africa is currently 25th, between 20 and 31st, 2030 countries in the world with the highest contribution to astronomy research. That is now becoming even more with SKA, MIRCAT, and other facilities that are there. But then, as I said, other countries are putting more and more effort. So in the future, there is still a lot to be done, but we are, I think, definitely on a very good path. So you can definitely contribute if you think about collaborating more with African researchers, wherever that you are. You can definitely contribute that this goes faster in the future. Those trends. Join the global networks that are there. Here I put some of them. That is definitely the African Astronomical Society. That really became, in the last 5 years, one of the most vibrant, dynamical societies that we have in astronomy worldwide. AFAS was established in 2019, and it's really bringing the change through different committees that are there, in particular the Education Outreach Committee that is very active, the Science Committee as well, and then AFNOA that I will speak about a bit more. And then the African Strategy for Fundamental and Applied Physics. This is also one of the indicators. So this is the initiative that started 3 years ago, not only in astronomy. Astronomy is only one of the 16 working groups that we have. And it's really the first initiative, the first strategy, and it's a bottom-top initiative. So very different one, where more than 300 physicists came together from Africa, from diaspora, the African diaspora, and then collaborators that work, that have strong connections across the world with African researchers. So more than 300 researchers came together to come up with this African strategy of fundamental and applied physics that we are now about to publish. It's the strategy that finally will be so the UNESCO will be the one that will be actually the owner of the strategy, and whose role will be to now promote the strategy among all the governments, countries that form a part of UNESCO, and all the stakeholders. So we are really excited about the years that are coming, but this is the strategy that really took us, as I said, 3 years to a bit come up with the current, explaining what is the current scenario of development in physics across the continent, different areas of physics, including astronomy, and then where the community wants to go in the future. Now, starting from here, I will just a little bit focus on AFNO. I think the time is running, so I will not have much time, but I will introduce AFNO, the African Network of Women in Astronomy, that started a few years ago, mainly inspired by trying to, inspired by the gender gap that we still have in science worldwide. You can see here how this gender gap goes when we come to different countries. So for example, in Ethiopia, we have only about 13% of all scientists that are women. That are countries that are better, like especially the Northern Africa, like Tunisia, Egypt, Algeria, South Africa as well. But then other countries that have only few percent of scientists that are females. We were also inspired by the fact that astronomy is becoming an emergent science across the continent, as you could see previously, but also by the fact that many women that are there actually work alone in their countries. And many of us that have been involved in work at different institutions across the continent where astronomy is just starting. We worked in those conditions that we are only one of the few, or basically the only women that are there, and not always it makes the life easier, no? So in 2019, 2020, we started, here you can see the very first board that we had of AFNWA members. We started discussing how we can initiate AFNWA. Then we reached AFAS that started more or less at the same time with the idea to become one of the committees. So that was done. And starting from in 2020, the AFNWA was established. In January, we officially announced AFNWA, and since then we really has been quite active. We started working on different activities. We currently have more than 170 members from 30 countries, the majority from Africa. More than around 80% are women, 20% men. Around 80% early career researchers, so master PhD students. You can see a bit the countries from where the members are coming. And then during these last 5 years, we went through different activities, bringing the network together, doing all the capacity building, organizing every year different online trainings. Then we started giving the very first awards for women in astronomy in Africa, early career awards, senior awards as well. So here you can see some of our awardees since 2021. This is done in collaboration with the International Science Program. Last year, we published the very first book with inspiring stories, more than around 50 women going from master students, PhD students, up to the senior astronomers that work in Africa. We also started organizing the sessions about women in astronomy, women in science during different conferences, including the annual AFAS meetings. We started developing the conversation with UNESCO. Part of it came through the ASFAP and the special chapter that we have about women in science under ASFAP and women in physics, but also through the other initiatives that UNESCO have about women in science. We developed small outreach videos, and then last year we started with opening the calls for the seed grants to support different initiatives and activities focused on girls, primary, secondary school girls and students across Africa that are working, living in challenging conditions. So in the first year, last year, we managed to support 13 projects, and now by the end of the year, we are planning to open the next call. Through these special sessions that we organized, we also came up with a list of what are all different challenges that professional women that women are facing across Africa, and related with the gender imbalance in astronomy and then in science in general. So here are different aspects. I will not have time to go through it, but we can leave it for the questions discussion session. But it includes, of course, in many aspects, it's related with the poverty. It also includes the lack of support for education, the pressure from the family, society, lack of role models, sponsorship, funding, lack of support for doing science in general, and many others. So under AFNOA, we developed the list of recommendations that you can always get in touch, and we can share. It's also there on our website. This list of recommendation is there for all the future policies that we would like that they are included, you know. And as I said, there are different points that I will not go. I can see Youssef there now activated the video, so I suppose that I should stop soon. So what I would like to what we always suggest is that if you do want to improve the gender balance in science, you can join the AFNO efforts. You can participate in different activities that we are organizing. You can strengthen your research collaborations with African female astronomers, African astronomers in general. Share always the training, human capacity development opportunities, host the African female astronomers and then early career astronomers independently on the gender, African researchers as well at your institution. Do outreach activities in collaboration with AFNOA, AFAS, all different initiatives that are there. Include those recommendations that I mentioned in your policy strategy plans as well. Now I have few slides that, again, we can leave for the, if you want, for the questions and the discussion. But under AFAS Science Committee, we did the survey that is Astronomy in Africa survey, where we saw a little bit what is, and then through the ASFAB, the work that we did under the African Strategy for Fundamental and Applied Physics, where we got a picture, what are the challenges and the needs that the astronomers across the continent are facing. So that includes many countries starting from scratch with astronomy development, limited resources in terms of human resources, funding, and so on, lack of supportive infrastructure, funding, astronomy in Africa that is still not accessible to all countries, and so on. So with this, we developed in the African Strategy for Fundamental and Applied Physics that, as I said, will come to become and to be one of the UNESCO initiatives, and then come to all different stakeholders. We developed, we identified 8 systemic inequalities when it comes to the research that we have and astronomy development in Africa, and then the list of recommendations. So you are welcome to access to reach us, to access the strategy that is there. But these 8 systemic inequalities are related with the global perception of importance of astronomy for the development. And then the list of recommendations we gave: systemic funding inequalities, systemic inequalities in human resources and number of qualified experts, systemic inequalities in the quality of the activities that are carried out and the metrics that are used to measure the production in astronomy, the quality, and so on, that are unfortunately the same for the whole world when the conditions are not the same. Inequalities in the means of communicating astronomy, including the publishing in Q1 journals, the systemic inequalities in terms of the access to the infrastructure and the access to the data, and then access to the world-class, to the basic infrastructure that includes even power access, internet, basic computing infrastructure, and then access to the world-class infrastructure, all the next generation, current generation telescopes and the data. And the final one is the fraction of underrepresented groups that we still have in across the African continent more than in the rest of the globe, just because of all the high numbers still of low-income countries when we compare with the world in general. And I will stop here so we can open the floor for the questions and more discussion around all of these topics. But I would like to stress this, that really investing in astronomy and in science in all countries across the globe, and then ensuring through that also more diversity, inclusion, and equity, is not a question of luxury. It's not a question of Agenda 2030 or Agenda 2063. It's really the fundamental need if we want to see the world as a better place in the future. And when I say once again as a better place, I really mean that we can combat poverty, that we can combat all inequality that we currently have in the world. And being professional astronomers, besides having the responsibility to contribute to that, we can also really make a significant difference with our knowledge, with our experience, with our skills through all these, some of these activities that I mentioned, and then many others as well. So thank you. Thank you very much once again for the invitation and your attention.
Thank you very much, Mirjana, for your presentation, on all the effort that you are doing within Africa and trying to encourage women to get to astronomy, and also what we can use the astronomy for development within this continent. So we're already beyond time, so we will have some time to ask questions or comments or anything you would like to share with us in the session. The floor is open, so you can raise your hand or open the mic and you can go ahead. If you have some questions for Mirjana or comments.
Yeah, sorry, Youssef. I think someone has got a question, but they typed it in the chat. So if you could maybe, as the moderator for today, if you could maybe read it for the speaker or something, I don't know.
Yeah, I do. So I see that it's a comment from Asna Mohammed Bukhari.
Okay. Okay. Hi, Nurul. So what is your opinion about developing countries usually focused more on product-based tech science engineering rather than fundamental science? So even though we have a lot of young passionate people about astronomy, but usually it's maybe stop when searching a long-term job career. Okay. Yes, well, I fully agree with you, Nurul. There is definitely a lot still to be done. I would say that the policies regarding the investment in science in general and which field are prioritized really changed from my experience, personal experience, and what I've seen. I think it really changed from one country to another. There are across Africa, no? And then world, of course. So there are countries in Africa that I think do have policy to more focus on and invest in fundamental sciences, like, for example, in Uganda, where there is definitely a clear difference between starting from primary, secondary schools, how much is focused there on fundamental sciences in comparison with others. No, I'm not saying here what is better or worse, but I'm saying just that the policies that the governments apply when it comes to the education and then science development in general are really very, very diverse. Definitely, many countries, as I mentioned, in Africa still are at the very beginning. In most of the countries, you remember what I mentioned, that as professional astronomer only 15 years ago, I was able to only get the job in South Africa as foreigner and in being a professional astronomer. Now the situation is very different. So definitely there are more and more opportunities. There are more opportunities across the continent, more open positions. So we are still underrepresented when it comes to comparison with other countries across other continents. But I think the things, I really think that the things are changing very fast. So now, as professional astronomers, that's also one of the roles that we have to play, to convince the policy decision makers and governments that investing in cutting-edge sciences like astronomy is really fundamental for social economical development. So I think that when we go to the schools, like in the first slides that I was showing, we are not lacking the children, students that are inspired by space, astronomy, science in general. Definitely, if there are no many job opportunities in their countries, they might not go to the science fields. But it's also important to mention, it's also important to when we go and do outreach in schools and universities, it's also important to highlight the students that they can be and they are important for the change in their own countries. No, the same as we can see now that we do have astronomy, more astronomy in Africa and space science in Africa, thanks to all people that did their PhD. If they were not able to do the PhD in astronomy in their own country of origin, well, they went to South Africa, they went to other countries, did their PhD, and then went back to their countries of origin, like Phineas in Rwanda, like Edward in Uganda, Zuhair Abdelmajid that I can see here connected, or Youssef as well, and came back to Morocco, started from scratch with the development of astronomy in Morocco, Solomon in Ethiopia, and many other colleagues. No, thanks to them, we have now astronomy across more than half African countries. No, so it's important to give these examples when we interact with students at schools, because again, they can be part of that change. So there is a lot to be done. So I think, Nurul, you are definitely right. But I think, with all of this and good positive examples that we have, I think we really have to motivate each other, motivate ourselves, so that we can really do as much as we can in all different aspects. And then that will come to the global change as well, the policy decision makers, and we can definitely see, that the awareness is there and that the global understanding is also changing.
Thank you. Thank you, Mirjana, for that, and thank you for asking this question. So now a question from Abdelmajid, or a comment?
Yes, thank you, Youssef. Hi, Mirjana. Thank you so much for this powerful, engaging talk. As usual, it was a really honor to listen to you. You said that an important development in astronomy in Africa last 10 years. So how can African research community balance national development goals with international scientific engagement? And the second question, quickly, through your own experience in Africa and the rest of the world, you have meet many people, and especially young people, astronomers. Regarding the future, what gives you the most hope about the next generation? Thank you.
Thank you, Abdelmajid. Well, maybe I can start with let me start with the first question. No, so the international collaborations, I think, are playing really the crucial role regarding the development of astronomy in the low-income countries, including many African countries. No, and that in the future we can definitely change that. And I think that. Strengthening those international collaborations. There are, I gave there for the Pan-Afro AGN survey, I mentioned, all the SK that is now playing a huge role in bringing that global change, and all different projects that are there under the SK. But then there are many others, so strengthening the international collaborations that comes through all different initiatives, like the one that we had with 5A, the one that you started with Materna initiative, that strength the mobility within and collaborations within Africa, but then with other countries as well, like with European countries, is really, really fundamental. I think the funding is still quite limited. as you know very well. No, with 5A we tried I think three years. With Materna we tried 2 years. PAPS is another initiative that managed to get the funding through the European Commission and has been running there for now 5 years. And then there are others, no, like DARA that was there for 5 years. Now they so definitely, I think the funding opportunities are still limited so that we can really strengthen more the international collaborations. But these funding opportunities were even less than 15 years ago. So I hope that in future, as long as, we push and we come up with more and more initiatives, there will be hopefully more opportunities for the funding opportunities as well in the future. And then when it comes to but in any case, it's really crucial. I think also that a lot of work strengthening the international collaborations can be done even with the funding opportunities that are already available. When you come to Europe, when you come to the countries where the astronomy development has been there for decades, you get a lot of collaborations, within European Union countries, between US, European Union, and so on, but not so many collaborations with low-income countries. I think that awareness is there more and more, so the mentality and the mindset of the researchers is changing. But definitely a lot is there to be done. When it comes to the second question, I think for the young generations, well, I think young generations in the world in which we are living really have a huge, of course, they play the fundamental role because all the future depends on, on what young generations are going to decide to do. I think that the world is becoming quite complex now with extreme polarization between the countries that is not positive at all. In many aspects, I think we can see that somehow we are going backwards instead of, moving forward in benefiting the lives of people across the globe. Instead of, fighting against racism, xenophobia, we are actually seeing, different policies that are making, this kind of trends stronger, which is quite worrying. And I think that the science that is one of the main activities to bring the humanity together, including astronomy, really has to play a very, very important role in the future. And definitely the young generation is the fundamental one. So I think that my message for all the young, for early career researchers would be really the first message to actually do not forget what are our roots, origins, where do we come from, and that in a certain way, by becoming professional scientists, we were privileged. We are privileged because we have so many of our colleagues, other kids and so on that didn't have the same possibility, and on one side it's also responsibility that we can really with our knowledge research contribute to astronomy moving as a science, but also all these different challenges that the world is going through. And as I said, that we can bring more diversity, inclusiveness, and equity in the future. So, yeah, I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes,
that
we
was
keep
good.
up.
So yeah,
Thank you.
so thank you, Mirjana. Maybe the last question, but please short answer too, because we are running out of time. So it's a question from Farah. From your experience, how can educators, especially women, become local role models or community mentors for girls, even without formal research role? And short, please, because we have already run out of time.
I don't understand without formal research role.
So how educators like teachers can be became local role models or mentors for the community, without being like a professional researcher, for example?
Researchers. Well, teachers are fundamental for inspiring for inspiring our kids, students, and the next, the future scientists. So every single teacher plays a crucial role. All of us became, I think, scientists because we had some of the teachers that pushed us and inspired us. So teachers are fundamental for our society. So if you are a teacher, you have a crucial role. You are already a role model. So what kind of message you are gonna give to the students and to push the students toward becoming more inclusive, dealing with all different gaps that we have there in terms of gender, geography, all different sorts of diversity is really, really fundamental. So as a teacher, by inspiring girls, saying that, empowering girls that they follow their dreams, that, they ask for help when they need, that, contacting them with other professionals, and inspiring all kids, that bringing them, more awareness about the opportunities is really fundamental. Without that, we cannot speak about future scientists.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much, Mirjana, for your talk and for also answering these questions. Thank you very much, and thanks to our for those who are being here, so the audience, so everybody who spent some time with us, and thank you all, and see you next time. So we have 2 more sessions coming in October, so please follow up our group. So for these conferences and also your engagement. Thank you very much, everyone, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.